Okay, well, welcome everybody. Let's get started. I will introduce our presenter, Mark Sloan, in just a moment. But I'm pleased to welcome you to our very first NZBCA webinar. And for those of you who've seen the roadmap, you'll know that webinars have been part of the plan from the beginning. And that's because sharing knowledge and insights amongst members is a key focus for us and for this organization. And when we first considered having the webinars, we wanted them to be firstly led by members, a chance to showcase their skills, their expertise, and so that people can get to know them as people as well as practitioners, but also focused on topics directly relevant to running and growing consultancies. And therefore, I hoped that we could, with the members' help, deliver interesting, relevant, value-laden content from day one. So initially we planned for one webinar a month, but when we put out the call for volunteers, I had quite an overwhelming response actually, and we've got 20 sessions in the backlog already, which I think is great. So given that, we've decided to start with a fortnightly schedule, and we'll see where that takes us through the year. Each webinar is being recorded, and we'll add that to our knowledge base, which is also in development. Beyond today's webinar, we've got some really good topics lined up. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll be looking at RFP processes, tools, and we're gonna touch on the possibility of RFP as a service and how you might use AI within RFPs. We've also got topics on selling to government organizations and another complementary one on selling to corporate organizations as well. So if you would like to deliver a webinar in the future, just let me know and I will make arrangements for that. So how the webinars work? Well, each presenter has 30 minutes for their session, followed by 15 minutes for questions and 10 minutes for a buffer for any overruns. I do know that people love webinars to finish at the right time. So I promise you this will finish at 5 to the hour. And anything further we can, of course, catch up with afterwards as well. If you only feel like dropping in for the presentation itself, the first half hour, feel free to do that and then drop off. No guilt required there. An hour can be quite a big commitment. 30 minutes is also a good time for us to record and edit into something meaningful that we can share with the members who don't attend as well. If you've got any questions as we go through, can you try putting them in the Q&A? This is all a little bit we're trial and error. It's the first time I've used Google Meets for something like this. So if you put them in the Q&A, we'll try and pick those up either as we go along or at the end. And with that, I would like to introduce Mark Sloan. So Mark is from Asaph Advisors, and he's joining us from New York State, I believe. So we're very fortunate to have him here. It's evening time for him. I've known Mark for a while. I've seen him speak at various webinars. He always brings sharp insights, especially on operational efficiency, which has always been an area of interest to me. And Mark will introduce himself shortly, but I will mention that he is also one of NZBCA's advisors. So as a member, feel free to reach out to him for advice. And with that, Mark, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, everyone, for attending. As Dan said, I'm with Asaph Advisors. We're focused on helping people-based businesses optimize performance. And today's discussion is all about getting off your spreadsheet and putting a professional services automation tool in place. So very quickly, Asaph Advisors, we help people-based businesses optimize performance and profitability. Core problems we help companies solve are around utilization, project execution, client satisfaction, financial performance. And we do that through the use of our services optimization framework. And there's a strategic component to it. Why does the organization exist? What are you there to do? What problems are you there to solve for clients? And then how do you operationalize that from a delivery perspective, your program project management structures, your delivery methodology, to resource management, which I believe is really at the heart of optimal performance for a services group, to go to market. How do you package up what you do? How do you sell it? Knowledge management, obviously undergirding that, and then your financial reporting and structures in place. And then lastly, the technology, right? What we're really here to talk about today from a professional services automation perspective. And just to give you some sense, I have been doing this for, consulting and professional service organizations for a good bulk of the last 15 years. Prior to that, I was at Accenture for 12 years. So, glean this experience through a lot of hard work and a lot of thought. So, enough about the introduction, right? Really transforming or transitioning into what are the information needs of a consulting firm, right? And obviously, you need to have a CRM. You need to manage your resources. You need to oversee and manage delivery, the reporting, finance and accounting, and knowledge management. And those are really the components of an enterprise resource planning solution, right? That a manufacturing company, have put in place for decades. The good news is we now have a class of solutions that are effectively an ERP for services businesses, right? Professional services automation, the framework that I introduced, right? All the components of an ERP, having CRM, having program project management, resource management, knowledge management, time and expense, and then financial reporting. So the big question is why, right? I'm extremely proficient in Excel. I'm sure many of you are. Why do we want to get off of spreadsheets and get into a professional services tool? And the reason is financial performance. So the Service Performance Insight Group annually puts out a survey of data that they've gathered from a variety of professional services groups, consulting firms. And the data year over year clearly shows the benefits of having a PSA on bottom line metrics, right? So in companies that have a PSA solution, they're delivering about 10% higher billable utilization than companies that don't. Project margins are 14% higher. Project EBITDA is, profit and EBITDA for the company is 28% higher than for companies that don't have a PSA solution in place. And I tend to always just bring it back to billable utilization. The chart on the left shows you that billable utilization will be higher. So putting together a business case, a return on investment for putting a PSA solution in place, if you just look at 1 point of billable utilization, right? If you could drive 1 more point of utilization per billable resource, it's about 20 hours of additional billable time spread across the year, right? If you've got 10 people at $200 an hour, that's a $42,000 revenue increase, but it's really a bottom line increase because you've already got that staff on hand. You're just getting more leverage out of them, right? And if you're 100 people or 200 people, the financial benefits of having this technology just significantly exceed the cost of putting it in place. So
Mark, just before you move on, then shall we do a little? Sorry, Mark, to interrupt there.
Yeah.
Shall we do a little poll first on whether people have heard of PSAs, whether they're using them, and so on? So we'll just put that out there in the ether. You should be able to just click on your on your result, and we'll give it about 30 seconds for people to answer whether or not, answer the most appropriate response. So have we got votes coming through? Yeah, we got votes coming through. Very good. All right. 5 votes. 6. 8. Very good. All right. Well, you can keep answering, but we'll just show the results as they stand now. So about 9 votes in at the moment. So in terms of results, did they pop up on the screen?
I'm not seeing them, but I am. My screen is blurred by the slideshow.
Okay, I will give you the summary. It should be able to. Maybe we have to end the poll for the results to pop up. Okay, we'll end the poll there.
Okay.
A bit of a spread of results if you can't see them. So what we've got is 2 votes for we've never even heard of a PSA. 2, we've heard of it, but we're still using spreadsheets. Most votes for we don't have a PSA. We have a patchwork of other software. Two people actively looking to put a PSA in place, and nobody with a PSA in place.
Okay, good. And that, those results in the U.S. would have been typical about, even 9, 10, 11 years ago. It was 12 years ago. PSAs were all pretty new. I know from running a services group, we built a series of homegrown applications to run the business. So, the good news is, right, now there are solutions, and I'm going to show you examples of a number of them that are out there that sit on the Force.com platform. If you're on Salesforce, solutions that aren't on the Force.com platform, but there's a plethora out there that are pretty easy to go get and and install. And so it sort of transitioning to that, right? You can buy components of a professional services automation tool in part, right? You don't have to necessarily buy the full footprint, right? Or you can buy it, but you don't have to use it all. The way they're priced today. And again, it's really an ERP solution for professional services, right? So you think about that from a CRM perspective, right? The PSA gives you central access to your prospects, your contacts, your opportunities, your activities. So as a consulting leader, you can start to see, who are we talking to? What are we talking about? What things might be happening, right? So you can use this to manage sales. You can use it to manage relationships with the customers. The benefit of gathering all this information within the PSA is it then rolls forward into program project management for planning, into resource management for planning. So it can set up on a dashboard for somebody downstream from sales to see what might be coming or what is coming once it closes. And this example here, just a screenshot, sort of a little bit blurry, I apologize. This is from Oracle's OpenAir product. OpenAir is one of those professional services automation tools that's been around for 12 or 13 years. Was one of the initial offerings that came out. Still extremely well supported by Oracle and in use in a variety of firms. Then the second component, program project management, right? Again, you may be doing this in Excel, you might be doing it in Microsoft Project, but the PSA vendors give you the ability to do your program project management, portfolio management, all within the tool. Again, one of the great benefits of that is, as I was mentioning, CRM, when a deal closes, that can migrate over to your portfolio, project portfolio. So okay, hey, look, we need to do something with this, right? It's seamless, it shows up, it's there. Again, this helps you with customer relationship management too, because now your program project manager quickly sees what's coming. Even if they're not prepared to start tomorrow, they can reach back out to a customer and say, hey, glad you signed, we're going to get going. Let's schedule a kickoff meeting for a week out. Right. So you get that advance notice and knowledge without having to have a lot of people involved. Next component of the solution is resource management. And for me, resource management is really a core function of a consulting and professional services organization. Right? If you get resource management done well, a lot of other problems that firms have typically go away, right? Because when you can mobilize the right person to the right place at the right time, your good people take care of your customers and you don't get calls and complaints from your clients, right? And so if you think about it, right, most services organizations are really good at what I call staffing, right? Something sold 2 days ago, we got to get started. We got to get started in 5 days. Who are we going to put on that? The benefit of resource management inside a professional service automation tool is you can do more proactive forecasting. So you can see things that are in the pipeline that might sell. So you can do some scenario analysis. Hey, look, if these 3 things hit, do we have enough people? Do we have enough people, but we have a skills mismatch, and maybe we need to shuffle things around. But this is, again, going to really enable you to proactively get the right people in the right place at the right time so that project delivery issues get tamped down. Your sales team is happy, your customers are happy because they see who they're getting and when they're getting, right? You can come in here and you can look at historical utilization, you can look at forecast utilization by resource, you can look at skills and competencies, so you can really start to mobilize people as needed. Next component is around knowledge management, right? And this is another area where, I have seen in countless firms that I've consulted with and groups that I've been in, right? We don't do enough work here, right? I was part of an organization where every time something sold or was about to sell, the sales force wanted Hyun now. Hyun was our best technical architect, right? And they knew if they got Hyun, hey, their problems would go away. Well, what we found was, Hyun could only be in one, maybe two places at the same time. And we couldn't replicate her. But what we could do is take the knowledge out of her head and create artifacts, right? Create project templates, create tools, create tip sheets. If we started to store them in a central repository, when Hyun was booked and we had to put Bill or Betty on a project, they could lean on those artifacts, right? And so by building up this knowledge library, you create repeatability, you enable yourself to staff lower priced, less tenured resources on complex roles because they've got a repository that they can go pull from to gain leverage, to gain experience and not recreate the wheel because they don't know what they're doing. Next up, as part of a PSA solution, is the time and expense entry, right? Again, you're doing this some way, somehow. And again, I've been part of organizations where we did it in Excel, right? We were able to gather it all up and bring it together. It required a fair bit of, manual massaging to get it right, make sure things were there. Again, the benefit of having this all in a PSA solution is you can proactively see who has not entered time. You can send out alerts automatically, right? Thursday night, hey, you don't have any time for the week. Make sure to get it in by Friday, before we're rolling things up for invoicing. That helps with invoicing, helps manage project profitability, helps with understanding utilization, right? When people are entering their time daily, weekly, you can quickly run reports to see how have we been doing, right? Where do we have some gaps to drive there? Again, the other nice part about having this all integrated in with one tool, it feeds into your project plan. So your project managers then can start to look at, actuals versus budget for each line item, see how the project's doing, where we might be overrunning or underrunning, relative to the project plan. And and then lastly, right, is the financial components, right? And this is really bringing together that time and expense entry. It's bringing together the projects so that if you've got a finance or operations person in the office, they can quickly look at all of this, right? And they can start to see again what I was talking about, where we're overrunning, where we're underrunning. They can pull and distribute links to reports inside the system and send them out to different folks on the team to say, hey, take a look at this, or hey, we're going to have to do something, here to drive better performance, right? But it's going to help with your project profitability, and it's going to ultimately help with overall, organizational profitability. Excuse me. So I'm going to pause there for a second because I'm going through this pretty quickly, and Dan, just see if there are any questions or comments.
I think I may have given people the wrong instructions, really. I don't think there's a question and answer section on Google Meets, but if anyone does have any questions, put them in the chat. I think whilst I will ask a question, Mark, actually, on something that was right at the beginning. You presented some figures on the difference between those firms who have a PSA and those that don't in terms of EBITDA, amongst other things as well. Are there any examples of before and after that you're aware of? I mean, kind of you'd expect much of the same kind of thing, but I'm wondering if any of those tools vendors are able to store that.
Can you repeat that last part of the question one more time?
I was just wondering if any of the tool vendors or anyone else that do actually collect that kind of information. Before and after is always great for the business case.
Yeah, I think anecdotally the PSA vendors do. I think at times they have a hard time getting the data from their clients just because the clients are a little reluctant to share some of the financial performance data. And that's where, somebody like this service performance insight group they've built a trusted brand and relationship where these services organizations are providing information confidentially, and SPI then distributes it out to to its members to say, hey, look, here's what we're seeing across our collective group of organizations, pre and post PSA, right? And I've seen it firsthand with clients that have implemented a PSA, where just things that used to take them days, if not weeks, to produce a report, right? Gather all the information, collate it, analyze it, and then start making decisions, starts to just be a snap of the finger, right? Because if you're in the good habit of requiring daily or weekly time entry by your people, project managers are doing hygiene on their projects right within the system, all the services exec has to do is really click the button, go in and look at the report, and they can much more easily see where things are going well and where they need to do some course correction. So you can be much more proactive as opposed to sitting and waiting and getting a report 3, 4, 5 days after the fact that then becomes harder to take action on.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Okay.
No more questions at the moment.
Okay.
Sorry, Mark. I do have a question. Things are going back. So yes, it says, Mark, you've shown several platforms which combined accumulate cost and also require I guess that's synchronization and integration between them. Is there a reason why you're using so many tools, or you're showing us so many tools?
So what I wanted to do was just show you that there are a range of tools. So I'm not suggesting that you go for CMAP for financial management, up here, and that you go to Projector for time and expense management. What I wanted to do was just show you that there's a range of tools that actually do all of this. So if you went to Projector does the full footprint here. I just wanted to show examples of the different screens and GUIs of the different organizations.
Thanks, Mark.
Does that make sense? All right. So in terms of picking a PSA solution, right? I always like to make it simple. I know it's the devil's in the details and things can get more complicated. But the first step is really to define, of the PSA footprint, what components do you and don't you need, right? Hey, we've already got Salesforce in place, so we really don't need the CRM component in a PSA solution. Oop, that should not have come forward. But we do need project management, resource management. Hey, we've got SharePoint for knowledge management, so we don't need it there. But figure out what module-wise is in versus out of scope. Then for each component that's in scope, right, define your requirements. We've assembled sort of a playbook of standard requirements across each of the modules that we've used with customers. And you go through line by line and say, yeah, we do want that. We do want that. We don't need that, right? And this is in part to just, get yourself grounded in what's in the realm of the possible. Hey, but then also decide, look, we're not going to do that. We don't need that capability of whatever solution we're going to pick, but get those nailed. This small chart here is reflective of a bigger chart that really starts to show all of the PSA vendors that are out there. And then there's research under, as you click in on each one of those, the pros and the cons of what they offer, what users say about them. What I tend to tell folks is, within this broad list of PSA vendors, pick 5 to 7, right? And 7 might be high. Maybe it's 3 to 5. Reach out to them, get some demos from them, right? Feed them some of your requirements, tell them your use cases, what you're trying to do, and have them do the show and tell, right? And you'll have the leader of the organization and 3, 5, 6 other folks sitting around looking at that demo. And what you're going to want to do is do a quick down select, right? You're going to want to rule some people out because you just don't like the user interface, or you don't like the flow, or they don't meet, sort of the bulk of the requirements you're looking for. But you can do that reasonably quickly. Get down to 2 to 3 vendors that you think could be a fit. And that's where you're going to want to do a much deeper dive, right? You're going to want to put out your requirements to them, solicit proposals from them, and you're going to want to take a look at their fit versus your requirements and the financials. And that may entail a more detailed demonstration from them, right? Where you come back to them and say, well, yeah, we pretty comfortable you have this, and this down, but we want you to show us this process, this requirement in the system so that we really see how it works and what it does. And then you can start to do a weighted analysis, right? Where for the different modules, you'll have different levels of importance, right? The weight of those. You'll score them. You'll get a weighted score. You'll then layer in the financials, right? What are the upfront costs versus the recurring costs? And it's not to say you have to go with the least expensive one, but you're going to want to balance fit and financials, obviously, to make your selection. But it can be overwhelming at first when you're making these decisions. But if you just go through these 6 steps, it really does become fairly straightforward in making the decision.
Mark, we have a question from one of the audience. So from Lex, she asks, approximately what size businesses are using a PSA? And there's a follow-on point. We have looked at it previously, and they are very expensive. So 2 points in there, I think. One question on size, then on cost.
Yep. Yeah. So I would agree, 3-4 years ago, if you were below sort of 100 people, 75 people, you probably, you were putting off the PSA solution because of price. There are a number of reasonably new entrants into the market that have lowered the price points. Their functionality is more, basic, right? Because they're designed for the 20, 30, 40 person organization. So it's going to be, straightforward time entry. It's going to be straightforward project planning within the solution. It's going to be a PSA light or PSA basic functionality. And those solutions at times, can be extremely affordable, right? Now, if you're 100 person, 300 person, 500 person or more, you're going to want a more, robust solution, which is, it's going to increase the price. But, some of the folks like CMAP, who's based in the UK, and others like that are offering, fairly affordable price points to much smaller organizations than you may have seen a few years ago.
That's good, Mark. If you look at the audience we have at the moment, you've probably got quite a mixture of firms that are between 100 would be the largest here, but there's certainly plenty in the 10 to 15 mark as well. Would you recommend starting with a PSA perhaps at an early stage, or is that still a little early to get the benefit, would you say?
So my personal feeling is it's better to start too early than start too late, right? Again, cost being a factor, but if you wait till you're 50, 75, or 100 people to start a PSA, you will have developed habits, processes, and procedures that are difficult to break with and move to a PSA solution. Not that it can't be done, right? But there will be organizational inertia that limits your ability to do that. So, again, even if you're pre-selecting a PSA, it is probably worth setting up a discussion with 1 or 2 vendors just to dip your toes in the water, see what they offer, right? See what it looks like. You may still decide, hey, we're going to hold off till we're 40, 50, 60 people. But I think you'd be surprised at some of the price points for some of these, right? Again, if you're going to do the light functionality around time entry, project and tasks lists, as opposed to a full Gantt chart for a 6-month implementation, you can get some of these things at a fairly reasonable dollar per user per month price point.
Great, thanks, Mark.
Sure. Any other questions, comments? Because I think I'm at the end of my prepared remarks.
Thank you very much, Mark.